the Supreme Court hearing arguments today on the president's authority to reshape federal agencies. The case stems from President Trump's decision to fire a Democratic member of the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, a 1935 precedent called Humphrey's Executor, holding that Congress can limit a president's ability to remove the heads of independent agencies. Joining us to assess, Democratic strategist Mally Smith and former Republican Congresswoman Nan Hayworth. Great to have you both back with us. Mally, let's start with you. Should the president have the power to fire independent agency heads?
Well, I think it looks like the Supreme Court is headed in that direction. It's hard to know based on the questions what the Supreme Court is going to decide, but the questions from the conservative justices seemed pretty hostile to the precedent. And we've seen them take actions to curtail the power of independent agencies. But I do think there is a reason that Congress and previous presidents wrote these statutes to make it where some regulatory agencies are a little bit above the political fray. Yes, they're appointed by the president, but they are given more latitude to make decisions and make regulations a bit away from the day-to-day political fight. I think there is a benefit to having that, and I'd be a bit worried if we just did away with that wholesale.
Congresswoman, the fired FTC Commissioner Rebecca Slaughter argues that overturning Humphrey's executor that we just laid out would do what she says is destabilize institutions, sort of what Mally is alluding to. What prevents future presidents of either party from pressuring agencies to serve political goals rather than the public interest, especially in a time where everybody has an opinion?
Well, that's a valid concern, clearly, Steve. But I think arguably the remedy, and I think constitutionally, given that the executive, according to Article 2, is charged with managing all of the federal agencies, independent is something of a term of art. You know, it's being asked to do an awful lot in these cases, I think, because they're not truly independent. And that's where the electorate comes in. You know, the executive does not have unchecked power. He is responsible to the electorate, and they express their pleasure or displeasure in every successive election, including in the midterm elections when the party of the president it becomes possible to change their proportions in the Congress. So I think the unitary executive principle will likely, yes, be upheld by the Supreme Court. And I think that constitutionally, there's good reason for that to be their decision.
Mally, the Trump administration argues that an elected president should be able to replace officials who are inconsistent with their policies if voters choose a president who promises institutional change. So why shouldn't that president be able to reshape these agencies?
Well, I do think we have to remember that the president does get the ability to appoint folks to these commissions and these boards. And also the president gets to appoint people throughout agencies across the government. I myself was a political appointee for President Biden. There's political appointees and career appointees. And I'm worried that if we go so far down the unitary executive theory where we turn everyone into an at-will political appointee of the president, what we're going to see is with every government, we are going to have massive change in our bureaucracy. And I think there needs to be a set of civil servants who are working behind the scenes that remain apolitical, who are able to kind of keep the boat moving even when we decide to change parties.
Congresswoman, you spend a lot of time in D.C. Perhaps this is a bit of a cynical question, but when you're not wanted, why stay?
You know, well, I do admire Mally's vision of the civil service, of the permanent civil service as objective and not politicized. And I agree with him that that is the ideal to which civil servants should hold themselves. but there is much evidence that indicates that there is a deep politicization of the civil service, and largely toward the party that favors more government, which is the Democratic Party. So that bias has been fairly well substantiated, if you will. So I don't think we can count on the civil service being apolitical. It'd be wonderful if we could. And again, there is accountability. The executive is accountable to the American people, and they will make their pleasure or their displeasure known. Yes, we had a fairly transformative election. And yes, I do believe that the American people then, have their chance to witness the results of what they chose to, the course they chose to pursue.
Shifting to another big issue of the day, President Trump announcing that $12 billion aid package for American farmers. Mally, what's your opinion of this approach? Is it a durable fix for farmers during this time, and when really so many of them are struggling from the fallout of the trade war with China?
Well, I'm glad Trump is trying to provide the water to douse the fire he created, but this tariff or this tariff bailout for farmers is needed because the trade war with China has been so destructive to U.S. farmers. 55%, there's been a 55% increase in farm bankruptcies in the Trump administration. And that is not because there's droughts or some man-made, there's not some natural disasters causing these issues. It's not because Europeans have changed their eating habits or Americans have changed their eating habits. It's because Trump instituted a trade war with China, and China has retaliated by freezing soybean purchases, and the tariffs are rising costs on equipment and other things farmers need to buy. So it's incredibly hurtful to their bottom line. Farmers usually have a very thin margin that they're operating on. Farmers don't want a bailout. Farmers want to be able to sell their crops on the worldwide market like any other business. So I'm glad there's a bailout, but we don't need a bailout if we didn't have this trade war in the first place. And then second, if we don't fix this trade war, we're going to have to bail them out again. So this will be a perpetual problem.
Mally, I'd push back, though, and just ask you, many in our intel community, in our military, regard China as the United States' most fierce adversary, not competitor, adversary, enemy, that does not have the United States' best interests at heart. They subvert America via Wall Street, Hollywood, media, you name it. We don't have the ability to do that in China because it's a completely closed country. Not many tools in the toolbox. If tariffs are indeed the only or one of the only tools, why do you think the president's taking so much heat for using them?
Well, I think if you're a farmer, you have to wonder why you have to sacrifice your livelihood for a larger battle with China. And I agree, we need to be tough on China. That's why the Biden administration passed the Chips and Science Act so we could onshore semiconductor manufacturing. That's additionally why the Biden administration also had tariffs on China on key industrial products. I just think it's misguided when it comes to this farmer angle because of the economics is so difficult for farmers. And additionally, President Trump is allowing us through NVIDIA to sell some of our top chips to China. So if you're a big tech company, apparently he'll be easy on China. But if you're a farmer, he's going to make you suffer the consequences of his trade war.
Congresswoman?
Well, I think that this is a war. I agree with the take that you described, Steve. And I understand as well, to Mally's point, that yes, there are certainly consequences that we bear as a nation for essentially, I mean, this is a non-kinetic war, if you will, with the People's Republic of China. It has implications for almost every aspect of American life. I do think that we need to pursue it if we are. It is the tariff policy is a matter of yes, reshoring manufacturing. The CHIPS Act, while the intentions were good, unfortunately, the CHIPS Act also put very stringent requirements on the way in which chip manufacturers can actually pursue their enterprise within the United States that unfortunately made things unnecessarily difficult. And that's something that we also have to address. But this is industrial policy. It is national defense. And yes, it does have implications for certain sectors of our economy where sacrifices in the short term are indeed being made. And I am glad that this administration rightly has a heart for our farmers. We cannot live without a viable agricultural industry. And I'll also point out that the Chinese know that as well, which is why they have pursued bioterrorism in the United States, thanks to a fungus, I believe it is, or a bacterium introduced by CCP agents. We've lost 90% of citrus in Florida. And we just caught a couple of Chinese operatives trying to do that, People's Republic operatives trying to do that again, toward wheat in the United States. So we've got a very complex battle on our hands. I'm glad that the farmers are getting help. And I, as a taxpayer, am more than happy to extend it to make our agricultural industry robust in this time of transition.
Let's not forget about the 100,000 plus Americans that are being killed due to Chinese precursor fentanyl poison that are entering the United States. We are indeed in an asymmetric, non-kinetic war with China. And, like during the war effort, as they called it back in, World War II, a lot of common citizens suffered for that effort. And it's sad and unfortunate, but it was a necessary evil. Mally Smith, Congresswoman Nan Hayworth, thank you both so much.